What if the smartest minds on Earth don't walk on two legs? Octopuses solving puzzles, crows crafting tools, elephants mourning their dead, dolphins calling each other by name. These aren't scenes from a science fiction film. They're real, documented behaviors from animals that might just be more intelligent than we've ever imagined. For centuries, we believe humans stood alone at the peak of cognition, language, memory, planning, empathy. But what if we were wrong? What if intelligence isn't defined by how we measure it, but by how it naturally evolves in other species? From the jungles of Africa to the depths of the ocean, animals are showing signs of emotional depth, abstract thought, and even morality. Some have passed tests of self-awareness. Others outperform humans in memory challenges. And a few, they may even dream. In this episode, we're diving deep into the science of animal intelligence. Not just to ask, are animals smart, but to challenge everything we think we know about consciousness, emotion, and the very boundaries of what it means to be intelligent. This isn't just about facts, it's about perspective. Because once you realize that your dog might understand more than you think, or that a crow might hold a grudge, you'll never look at the animal kingdom the same way again. So buckle up. The answers might surprise you, and they could change the way we treat life on this planet. Before we dive deeper into the minds of Earth's most brilliant non-human beings, take a second to join us on this journey. If you're fascinated by the hidden intelligence of animals, if you believe in challenging what we think we know, and if you want to help spread awareness through science and empathy, back and index pointing right, hit that subscribe button. Thumbs up, give us a like if you've ever been amazed by an animal. Speech balloon, drop a comment below. Which animal do you think is the smartest? Television, and don't forget to explore our other deep dives. Every episode is a new adventure into the wild world of animal truth. All right, ready? Let's explore the minds behind the fur, feathers, and fins. For centuries, we believed intelligence was a uniquely human gift, the spark that separated us from the beasts. But what if we were wrong? All around us, creatures with feathers, scales, fur, and fins are demonstrating astonishing cognitive abilities, solving puzzles, using tools, forming lifelong bonds, even mourning their dead. In New Caledonia, a crow bends a piece of wire into a hook to fish food out of a tube, a task requiring planning, creativity, and insight. In the Pacific, octopuses carry coconut shells for future shelter, the only known invertebrates to use tools. And in Kenya, elephants pause and gather quietly around the bones of a lost family member, as if paying respect. These aren't isolated tricks. They're windows into minds we're only just beginning to understand. For a long time, science was skeptical. Animal behavior was dismissed as instinct, not intelligence. But recent decades have ushered in a revolution. Cognitive ethology, the study of animal minds, is rewriting what we thought we knew. It's no longer about, can animals think? Now the question is, how do they think? And how much do we underestimate them? As we begin our exploration, keep this in mind. Intelligence doesn't always look like ours. It swims, it flies, it gallops, and it glides. And often, it hides in plain sight. What does it truly mean to be intelligent? For much of modern history, intelligence was measured by how closely a creature resembled humans. Could they speak, use tools, solve math problems, or memorize sequences. If not, they were labeled as lower animals driven purely by instinct, lacking thought or awareness. But this narrow lens blinded us to the richness of animal minds. We've come to realize that intelligence isn't a straight line. It's a spectrum shaped by evolution and environment. A dolphin's mind evolved for life in a 3D acoustic world. A crow's brain is optimized for aerial problem solving. An ant colony thinks collectively. A dog's brain, built to read us, humans, with uncanny accuracy. Each of these animals is brilliant in their own way. This shift in thinking is part of a broader movement in science. The push to define intelligence not by what animals can't do, but by what they can. Not by comparing them to us, but by understanding them on their own terms. A parrot solving logic puzzles doesn't need to pass a human IQ test to prove its worth. A rat navigating a maze or a dolphin understanding symbolic language isn't mimicking, it's reasoning. And now, thanks to neuroscience, ethology, and AI modeling, we can start to map these minds like never before. We've discovered that brain size alone doesn't dictate smarts. Corvids and primates, separated by millions of years, have evolved remarkably similar cognitive skills despite vastly different brain structures. It's not just about neurons, it's about what those neurons are doing. So, let's expand our definition. Intelligence is no longer just the ability to pass a test. It's the ability to adapt, communicate, solve problems, remember, and even feel. And when we widen the lens, the animal kingdom bursts into view, not as a silent backdrop to our lives, but as a vibrant network of minds, each processing the world in fascinating and sometimes profound ways. If we told you that one of the smartest animals on the planet has feathers, a beak, and no neocortex, would you believe it? Meet the crow, one of nature's most underestimated geniuses. Members of the corvid family, including ravens, crows, and jays, have demonstrated levels of intelligence once thought exclusive to great apes. And yet, their brains are no bigger than a walnut. How is this possible? The answer lies not in size, but in structure and efficiency. Crows have an incredibly dense cluster of neurons in their forebrains, comparable in number to those found in primates. This enables them to perform complex problem solving, use tools, plan for the future, and even hold grudges against specific humans. In Japan, urban crows drop nuts onto roads and wait for cars to crack them open, then retrieve the meat once the traffic stops. In labs, they've solved multi-step puzzles that require foresight and reasoning. One crow named Betty even bent a wire into a hook to retrieve food, an innovation that shocked researchers. But it's not just their smarts, it's how they think. Crows can anticipate consequences, show signs of self-control, and even appear to understand cause and effect, traits that suggest higher-order cognition. They also remember faces, pass knowledge across generations, and hold what some scientists call mental maps of their environment, a kind of inner GPS that tracks landmarks and threats. What's even more astounding, they do all this without a neocortex, the brain structure that underlies much of human reasoning. Instead, their intelligence emerges from the nidopallium caudolateral, a region that functions in a similar way. In essence, crows show us that intelligence can evolve along completely different biological pathways. They're not mimicking human behavior. They've arrived at their brilliance on their own terms, shaped by millions of years of evolution in skybound survival. It's probably watching you back and remembering. If we told you that one of the smartest animals on the planet has feathers, a beak, and no neocortex, would you believe it? Meet the crow, one of nature's most underestimated geniuses. Members of the corvid family, including ravens, crows, and jays, have demonstrated levels of intelligence once thought exclusive to great apes. And yet, their brains are no bigger than a walnut. How is this possible? The answer lies not in size, but in structure and efficiency. Crows have an incredibly dense cluster of neurons in their forebrains, comparable in number to those found in primates. This enables them to perform complex problem-solving, use tools, plan for the future, and even hold grudges against specific humans. In Japan, urban crows drop nuts onto roads and wait for cars to crack them open, then retrieve the meat once the traffic stops. In labs, they've solved multi-step puzzles that require foresight and reasoning. One crow named Betty even bent a wire into a hook to retrieve food, an innovation that shocked researchers. But it's not just their smarts, it's how they think. Crows can anticipate consequences, show signs of self-control, and even appear to understand cause and effect, traits that suggest higher-order cognition. They also remember faces, pass knowledge across generations, and hold what some scientists call mental maps of their environment, a kind of inner GPS that tracks landmarks and threats. What's even more astounding, they do all this without a neocortex, the brain structure that underlies much of human reasoning. Instead, their intelligence emerges from the nidopallium caudolateral, a region that functions in a similar way. In essence, crows show us that intelligence can evolve along completely different biological pathways. They're not mimicking human behavior. They've arrived at their brilliance on their own terms, shaped by millions of years of evolution in skybound survival. It's probably watching you back and remembering. If intelligence evolved on another planet, it might look a lot like an octopus. Octopuses are invertebrates, creatures without backbones, yet their intelligence rivals that of many mammals. They have 9 brains, 1 central brain and 1 mini-brain in each of their 8 arms. Their neuron count rivals that of dogs, with over 500 million neurons, and 2/3 are in their arms, giving each limb a degree of independence. But here's where things get eerie. Octopuses can solve puzzles, open jars, mimic other animals, and even recognize individual humans. In lab settings, they've escaped enclosures, turned off lights they disliked, and squirted water at researchers they apparently didn't like. These aren't just tricks, they're signs of cognitive flexibility. What's more, their intelligence is evolutionarily alien to ours. Mammals and octopuses share no common intelligent ancestor. That means their minds evolved completely independently, making them the closest thing we have to encountering an alien intelligence right here on Earth. And with that intelligence comes signs of pain perception and emotion. In 2021, researchers demonstrated that octopuses can experience negative affective states, a crucial sign of pain. In one experiment, octopuses injected with a mild irritant avoided areas associated with the pain, and when given a pain-relieving drug, they preferred areas associated with comfort. They weren't just reacting, they were making choices based on past experience and internal states. Their nervous systems are vastly different from ours, yet they seem to feel, learn, and choose, and perhaps even dream. Video footage suggests octopuses change color and twitch in their sleep, possibly replaying memories or dreaming. And remember, octopuses only live a few short years, yet demonstrate intelligence that rivals long-lived species. It raises a haunting question. What if they had lifespans like ours? What might they become? They might be conscious. What do you see when you look in a mirror? If you recognize that it's you, congratulations. You've passed the mirror self-recognition test, one of the few benchmarks of self-awareness used in animal cognition research. Most animals react to their reflection with confusion, aggression, or indifference. But a select few do something remarkable. They check themselves out. They groom parts of their body they couldn't otherwise see. They make faces. They explore the reflection curiously, not as a stranger, but as themselves. Who makes the cut? Great apes like chimpanzees, bonobos, and orangutans have all passed the test. So have bottlenose dolphins, Asian elephants, magpies, and even the unlikely cleaner wrasse fish, suggesting that self-awareness isn't limited to primates or mammals. In one famous experiment, a chimpanzee named Gallop had a red dot placed on his forehead. When shown a mirror, he touched the dot on his own head, not on the mirror, proving that he understood the reflection was of himself. But it doesn't stop at mirrors. Self-awareness includes understanding your place in space and time, empathy for others, and even anticipating future needs. Traits observed in animals that fail the mirror test, like dogs or crows. So maybe the mirror isn't the ultimate test after all. Instead, researchers now use a suite of tasks: delayed gratification, perspective taking, emotional intelligence, and planning for the future, all signs of a rich inner life. When elephants mourn their dead, when dolphins call each other by signature whistles, when magpies cover the bodies of fallen companions with leaves, are we seeing grief, ritual, memory? These aren't simple behaviors. They're windows into self-awareness, empathy, and perhaps even conscious suffering. If an animal can recognize itself, understand the concept of me, and anticipate pain or joy, then it's no longer just reacting to the world. It's participating in it, and that changes everything. Planning, anticipation, saving something for tomorrow. These may sound like simple acts, but they're deeply rooted in cognitive complexity. For the longest time, scientists believed that only humans could think about the future in a meaningful way. But is that really true? Let's start with a clever bird, the western scrub jay. In an astonishing experiment, these birds were given two compartments, one where food would be available the next morning and another where it wouldn't. After just a few trials, the scrub jays began hiding food in the no-food compartment. They were planning for the future, not just reacting to habit. That's not all. In a separate study, scrub jays cached specific types of food in certain locations and remembered what they hid and when, even factoring in spoilage time. That's not just memory. That's episodic foresight, the kind humans use to plan their week. But the birds aren't alone. Chimpanzees have been seen hoarding stones during calm moments, only to throw them at zoo visitors hours later in a show of premeditated aggression. That's right, chimps plan sneak attacks, which, while unnerving, is also incredible evidence of future thinking. Even rats, Yes, rats have been trained to navigate mazes where rewards change based on previous choices. Using their hippocampus, the brain region tied to memory and spatial navigation, rats can simulate future routes, weighing options in their tiny minds before they ever move. But what does this mean for suffering? It means that animals aren't just living in the now. If they can anticipate pleasure, they might also dread pain. If they can plan to avoid hunger, they might also anticipate stress, danger, or harm. This shifts the ethical conversation. Suffering isn't just a reflex. It may be foreseen, feared, and mentally endured before it even arrives. Future thinking is a form of mental time travel, and some animals are already boarding the train. Tool use has long been hailed as a hallmark of human intelligence, a defining trait that separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. But dig a little deeper, and that narrative starts to crack. Let's begin in the forests of New Caledonia. Here, a species of crow, not an ape, not a dolphin, but a bird, crafts tools from twigs, leaves, and even their own feathers to extract insects from bark and crevices. These New Caledonian crows not only use tools, they design them, often choosing just the right shape, size, and material for the task. In some cases, they create compound tools, assembling multiple parts to make something new. That's innovation. Across the globe, elephants have been observed using branches to scratch hard-to-reach places or swat away flies. Some have been seen plugging water holes with bark to keep the water fresh, returning later to retrieve it. That's not instinct. That's problem-solving using physical objects, tools, in purposeful ways. Dolphins in Shark Bay, Australia, have taken it even further. Female dolphins there teach their young to use marine sponges as protective nose caps while foraging on the seafloor, shielding themselves from sharp coral and hidden predators. This behavior is passed down generations, a kind of cultural tool tradition similar to how human parents teach kids to use a fork or a toothbrush. And let's not forget primates. Chimpanzees using sticks to fish for termites, cracking nuts with stones, or even sharpening spears to hunt bush babies. In captivity, they'll even stack boxes to reach high bananas. It's not just that they use tools, it's that they understand how and why those tools work. But here's where it gets fascinating and a little unsettling. Tool use implies understanding cause and effect, planning ahead, and manipulating the environment to meet needs. In short, it reveals conscious intention. And if an animal can intentionally seek relief, might they also intentionally avoid pain? Memory. It's the foundation of learning, planning, and survival. And while we often pride ourselves on our long-term recall, some animals are putting our brains to shame. Take the Clark's nutcracker, a small bird found in North America. Each year, it caches up to 30,000 seeds across vast mountain ranges. Months later, even under layers of snow, it retrieves the majority with jaw-dropping precision, using memory alone. No map, no GPS, just spatial recall. In African savannas, elephants remember waterholes and migration routes over hundreds of kilometers, even after decades of drought. Herd matriarchs often rely on lifelong memories to lead their groups to safety during crises. Scientists have documented how older matriarchs increase a herd survival odds, not by brute strength, but by their knowledge bank. And what about octopuses? In labs, they can remember puzzle boxes, how to open jars, and distinguish between individual humans, sometimes preferring one caretaker over another. Their memory isn't just mechanical. It seems personal, emotional. Crows and ravens remember faces of humans who've harmed or helped them and pass that information to their peers. If you wrong a crow, don't be surprised if you're dive-bombed by its friends later. That's social memory in action, stored and shared. These aren't just reflexes or instincts. They are memories encoded, retrieved, and acted upon, sometimes after weeks, months, or even years. If an animal can remember pain, who caused it, where it happened, and how to avoid it, doesn't that suggest a deeper experience of suffering? And more importantly, an anticipation of future pain? Because memory isn't passive. It shapes behavior. It guides choices. It builds empathy, fear, trust, and even regret. In animals, just like in us, memory appears to be a bridge between experience and emotion. And if they remember, truly remember, then what else do they carry inside? How do we know if an animal is self-aware? One famous method is the mirror test, a simple yet profound experiment. A scientist places a mark on an animal's body in a place it can't see, like its forehead. Then, a mirror is introduced. If the animal uses the mirror to inspect or touch the mark, it suggests a level of self-recognition. It means the animal understands, that's me. It's a test that chimpanzees, orangutans, dolphins, elephants, and even magpies have passed. But many animals fail, not necessarily because they lack self-awareness, but because the test is biased towards species that rely on vision. Take dogs, for example. They don't recognize themselves in mirrors, but in scent-based tests, where their own smell is altered, they react with intense curiosity. That suggests a kind of olfactory self-recognition. And in the ocean, dolphins have been seen twirling in front of mirrors, inspecting themselves from all angles, even blowing bubbles for fun. One dolphin named Presley passed the mirror test in just 3 days, faster than many primates. Even cleaner wrasse fish, tiny coral reef dwellers, have shown mirror self-recognition. When marked, they attempt to scrape the mark off their bodies. If true, this would make them the first fish to pass the test, challenging long-held beliefs about fish cognition. But the mirror test is only a starting point. Real self-awareness may go beyond recognizing our own image. It includes understanding our place in the world, having intentions, and being aware of others' perspectives. A crow solving a multi-step puzzle, an elephant mourning a dead herd mate, or a parrot vocally describing its own emotions. These aren't just curiosities. They hint at something profoundly human in the non-human. Maybe the question isn't just, do they recognize themselves in a mirror? Maybe it's, do they recognize themselves in experience? Because if they can say, in their own way, this is me, then they can also say, this is me. Do animals feel emotions the way we do? Science is beginning to catch up with what many pet owners already believe. Animals experience a rich tapestry of emotions: joy, grief, jealousy, love, and even guilt. Let's begin with something simple: laughter. Rats, yes, rats, giggle when tickled. It's an ultrasonic chirping sound, inaudible to our ears, but clear through special microphones. They also play, chase each other, and show signs of anticipation and excitement. Elephants are known to comfort distressed companions, using their trunks to gently touch or even hug them. When a member of their herd dies, elephants have been seen to mourn, lingering near the body, touching the bones, and falling silent. This isn't just behavior, it's grief. Dogs can experience jealousy when their owners give attention to other pets. Cats show affection, not through loud emotion, but by slow blinking, grooming, and rubbing against those they trust. These aren't robotic responses, they are signs of attachment. Then there are primates. Chimps console each other after fights. Bonobos, our closest relatives, resolve tension with affection. And in heartbreaking moments, they've been seen holding the hands of dying companions, staying with them until the end. Birds, too, show surprising emotional complexity. When a partner dies, geese may grieve, stop eating, or isolate themselves. Parrots form lifelong bonds, and when separated, they cry out for each other in distress. But here's the dilemma. It's easy to anthropomorphize, to project our feelings onto animals. So researchers look for consistent, measurable signs. Heart rate changes, hormone levels, facial expressions, and behavior patterns that suggest emotional states. One study found that cows separated from their calves exhibit signs of anxiety and restlessness, with cortisol spikes, just like humans during stress or loss. The truth is, emotion is not a human invention. It's a biological strategy, a way to connect and survive. Pain doesn't always happen in silence. In many animals, it's a signal, not just to themselves, but to others. When an injured wolf limps, it's not only an expression of damage. It tells the pack something is wrong. That animal may receive protection or reduced pressure to hunt. In the social world of pack animals, visible pain shapes behavior and decisions. Birds like starlings chirp distress calls when wounded, alerting others to danger. Even rodents emit high-frequency squeals that signal distress. These aren't just noises, they're urgent broadcasts. I'm hurt. Be careful. Octopuses, fascinatingly, groom injured limbs and avoid areas where pain occurred, even days later. Scientists believe this is not only memory, but a form of pain recall, something once thought limited to vertebrates. Their color shifts and postures after injury also act as visual cues to others. In farm environments, studies show that sheep express pain through subtle facial expressions, squinting eyes, tightened mouths, collectively known as the grimace scale. This has been scientifically validated and used by veterinarians to assess discomfort. But pain communication also extends beyond the physical. Some animals display empathic responses to others in pain. In laboratory settings, when mice see cage mates in pain, they become more sensitive to pain themselves. This mirror distress, called emotional contagion, is a primitive form of empathy. Even dogs have been observed whimpering or becoming agitated when their human companions are hurt. They don't just see pain, they feel it with us. Yet, the evolutionary purpose of this communication is not just compassion, it's survival. By expressing pain outwardly, an animal can deter further harm, attract help, or teach others to avoid similar threats. But here's the deeper point. Pain is not a private experience. It ripples outward across species, relationships, and even ecosystems. To recognize pain in animals is to recognize their role. When we think of animal pain, we often picture the sharp sting of an injury, a cut, a broken limb, a bite. But there's a darker, quieter reality: chronic pain. The kind that lingers. The kind that doesn't scream, but whispers endlessly. Chronic pain in animals is easy to miss. Unlike humans, they can't describe persistent discomfort. And evolution taught many species to mask pain, especially prey animals, to avoid attracting predators. But that doesn't mean they aren't suffering. Dogs with arthritis may become less playful or more withdrawn, not laziness, but quiet agony. Cats, often stoic, might stop grooming or hide more often. Elephants with chronic foot injuries from captivity endure pain for years, altering their gait and posture until permanent damage sets in. Pain that persists affects more than movement. It affects mood, sleep, even memory. Just like in humans, chronic pain in animals can lead to depression-like symptoms, changes in appetite, and social withdrawal. In lab studies, animals with ongoing pain showed less interest in rewards, a powerful parallel to anhedonia, or the loss of pleasure seen in human depression. In livestock such as dairy cows or pigs, untreated infections and injuries can lead to months of low-grade, systemic pain. Because these animals are seen primarily for productivity, the signs are often overlooked or normalized. But the suffering is no less real. Recognizing chronic pain in animals requires vigilance, empathy, and often a shift in mindset. It means understanding that a limp isn't just a mechanical issue. It's a message. That a change in behavior might be a silent cry for help, but it also brings hope. Today, veterinary medicine is evolving, with pain scales for different species, advanced diagnostics, and even animal-targeted pain relief therapies. The more we learn, the better we can act. To see chronic pain is to take responsibility, not just for treating injuries, but for honoring the inner lives of the animals. One of the strangest and most haunting experiences in human medicine is the phantom limb phenomenon, when a person feels pain or sensation from a limb that's no longer there. It challenges our understanding of pain. If pain isn't in the body, but in the brain, then what does that mean for animals? Surprisingly, phantom limb pain isn't exclusive to humans. In veterinary medicine, amputations are sometimes necessary. For example, in dogs with cancerous limbs or animals injured beyond recovery. But what happens after the surgery? Some animals exhibit behaviors that mirror what humans describe as phantom pain. Dogs may chew or lick at the sight of the missing leg. Cats might twitch their invisible tail. Horses have shown signs of discomfort long after an injured limb was removed. And the science behind it? It's fascinating. Pain isn't just about damaged tissue. It's about how the nervous system processes and remembers pain. After an amputation, the neural circuits that use to represent the lost limb don't just shut off. They stay active, and in some cases become hyperactive, creating the illusion that the limb is still there and hurting. In a 2022 study, scientists discovered similar neurological patterns in lab rats that underwent amputations. Their brains lit up in ways eerily similar to human phantom pain. This suggests that the brain's map of the body, the somatosensory cortex, is not unique to us but shared across species. This opens a deeper question. If animals can feel pain from a limb that no longer exists, then pain must be more than just physical. It's neurological, emotional, perhaps even existential. And it forces us to redefine what pain is, not as a reaction to harm, but as a relationship between memory, brain wiring, and identity. Phantom pain in animals is a chilling reminder that pain is not just a signal. It's a story the brain tells, and sometimes that story never ends. There are few decisions as heavy as euthanasia. Whether you're a pet owner, a veterinarian, or an animal rights advocate, the question lingers. Are we ending suffering or ending a life that could still be lived? In human medicine, euthanasia is a deeply controversial issue, fiercely debated and heavily regulated. But when it comes to animals, it's often accepted without question. Dogs, cats, livestock, even wildlife are euthanized every day, often under the banner of ending pain. But how do we know they're in pain? Whether they want relief, that they're not still finding joy in simple things, a scent in the wind, a familiar voice, the warmth of sunlight? The science of pain complicates this conversation. We now understand that animals process pain through shared neural pathways, from the peripheral nerves to the spinal cord, and finally to the brain's pain centers. But more than just nerves and chemicals, pain is also interpreted through emotion, memory, and context. Some animals, after injury or illness, adapt surprisingly well. A three-legged dog can run, jump, and play. A blind cat can navigate a home with ease. Chickens with injured feet may still show interest in food, social interaction, and dust baths. Are we projecting human assumptions of quality of life onto creatures who might define it differently? And when euthanasia is chosen not for pain, but for convenience, overcrowding, or economics, the conversation takes a darker turn. A 2020 veterinary ethics study surveyed professionals who admitted that in some shelters, animals are euthanized not because they're suffering, but because there are simply too many of them. Pain becomes a secondary concern. This raises profound ethical questions. If animals do feel pain like we do, don't they also deserve the right to fight, to heal, to decide, or at least to be given every chance? Euthanasia may be a mercy, but only when guided by deep understanding, compassion, and science. Why do we cry over a limping puppy but feel nothing gutting a fish? Why do some cultures revere cows as sacred, while others see them as dinner? The answer isn't biology, it's culture. Despite the growing science around animal sentience, our empathy isn't equally distributed. It's filtered through thousands of years of beliefs, traditions, and societal conditioning. Take fish. Billions are caught and killed every year, suffocating in nets, crushed in piles, filleted alive. And yet, many people don't believe fish can feel pain. Why? Because they're cold-blooded? Because they don't have facial expressions? Because they don't make sounds we recognize? In 2010, a team of neuroscientists showed that fish have nociceptors, the very receptors that detect harmful stimuli in humans. They display avoidance behavior, altered feeding patterns, and signs of distress when exposed to painful conditions. But still, most people see them as little more than swimming automatons. Meanwhile, dogs, thanks to their expressive faces, wagging tails, and social behavior, earn our protection, even as other animals, equally sentient, are slaughtered for convenience or fashion. Culture teaches us who gets to suffer. In some Western societies, octopus is considered a delicacy, even though octopuses are now recognized as among the most intelligent and behaviorally complex animals on Earth. In Korea, dogs are eaten. In India, cows are sacred. In the Philippines, pigs are lovingly raised, and then lechon is served at every celebration. This cognitive dissonance, loving one animal while eating another, has a name. Carnism. It's not that people are heartless. It's that we've been taught to categorize animals into moral boxes. Pets, food, pests, tools. And once an animal is placed in a certain box, we ignore its suffering even when it mirrors our own. Understanding pain in animals isn't just about neuroscience. It's about confronting the biases we've inherited and asking uncomfortable questions. Who feels it? Science is screaming. Animals feel pain. But the law? It's still whispering. Despite decades of research confirming sentience in mammals, birds, fish, and even octopuses, most legal systems treat animals as property, not as beings with rights. Sure, your dog may be considered a member of the family in your heart, but legally, she's closer to your sofa than your sibling. In some countries, the law has started to catch up. The UK's Animal Welfare Act recognizes animal sentience and demands that animals be protected from unnecessary suffering. The European Union officially declared animals as sentient beings back in 2009. But here's the kicker. Sentience isn't always enough. These laws often exclude animals used in farming, fishing, and research, the very industries where most animal suffering occurs. For example, billions of chickens are bred in factory farms globally, but many animal welfare laws do not cover birds at all. Fish, despite mounting evidence of their capacity to feel pain, are rarely granted even the basic legal protections afforded to mammals. And what about in laboratories? In the U.S., the Animal Welfare Act doesn't protect rats, mice, or birds used in experiments, despite the fact that these species make up over 95% of lab animals. Even when laws do exist, enforcement is often weak or non-existent. Cruelty is punished only in extreme cases, and routine practices like tail docking, debeaking, and confinement are legally sanctioned, even if they would be considered torture under other circumstances. So while neuroscience, behavioral science, and ethics push us toward recognizing animal pain as real and morally significant, the law drags behind, tangled in politics, economics, and tradition. And that lag has real consequences. Because until animals are recognized not just as sentient, but as deserving of protection, knowledge alone won't be enough to stop the suffering. The gap between what we know and what we do is the battleground for the future of animal ethics. Why do we protect some animals and eat others? In many Western cultures, dogs and cats are beloved companions, pampered, protected, and mourned when they pass. But pigs, despite being just as intelligent and emotionally complex, are raised by the billions in industrial farms and slaughtered without a second thought. In parts of India, cows are sacred. In parts of the Philippines, dogs are still consumed in select regions. In Japan, dolphins have cultural significance. In the Faroe Islands, pilot whales are hunted in a yearly tradition. In France, foie gras is a delicacy, made by force-feeding ducks to fatten their livers. These differences aren't based on science. They're cultural, rooted in history, religion, tradition, and taste. Psychologists call it the meat paradox. We love animals, but we also eat them. To ease the cognitive dissonance, we mentally distance ourselves from the reality. We avoid thinking about how meat ends up on our plates. We use euphemisms like beef and pork instead of cow or pig. We don't name the animals we eat. But science challenges that disconnect. MRI scans show that pigs and dogs process pain in strikingly similar ways. Both exhibit emotional distress. Both remember trauma. Both form social bonds. And both play. So why does one go to the vet while the other goes to the slaughterhouse? The answer isn't science, it's culture. And culture can change. Just as once taboo topics like civil rights or women's suffrage evolved through education and awareness, the way we view animals can shift too. Some are already making changes, opting for plant-based diets, advocating for humane farming, or simply acknowledging the moral complexity of eating animals. This isn't about blaming, it's about understanding. Understanding how traditions shape our ethics, how empathy is often filtered through familiarity, and how, with new knowledge, comes the opportunity to choose differently. For centuries, animals were seen as property, tools for labor, food, or entertainment. But that view is starting to shift thanks to science, activism, and a growing global awareness of animal sentience. Across the world, animal advocacy movements are pushing boundaries. In New Zealand, the government has legally recognized animals as sentient beings, capable of experiencing both pain and joy. Spain extended some legal rights to great apes, acknowledging their advanced cognitive abilities. India's Supreme Court has referred to animals as legal persons in select rulings. Even in the U.S., some cities have passed ordinances banning certain forms of animal confinement or recognizing basic animal rights. It's not just symbolic. These changes have real impacts. Some laws now require pain relief for animals during procedures like dehorning or tail docking. Factory farming practices, once hidden behind closed doors, are being banned or replaced in parts of Europe and North America. The fur industry is shrinking. Cosmetic animal testing is now illegal in over 40 countries. And in the courtroom, animals are slowly gaining a voice. In Argentina and Colombia, courts have ruled in favor of habeas corpus petitions on behalf of orangutans and bears, arguing that they deserve freedom from captivity. But this movement isn't driven only by lawyers or scientists. It's powered by people like you. Viewers who question, who care, who share information, who change their diets, vote with their wallets, or simply tell others what they've learned. It's no longer just about ethics. It's about responsibility. Because with scientific understanding of animal suffering comes a moral obligation to act, to improve conditions, to challenge outdated laws, to demand transparency. As we expand our moral circle, we begin to see animals not just as beings we use, but as individuals who matter. And in that shift, the future of animal welfare begins to change. Science can show us that animals feel pain. Neuroscience can map the parallels between their brains and ours. Behavior can demonstrate suffering beyond doubt. But there's one question science alone can't answer. Where do we draw the ethical line? This is where philosophy steps in, and where society often divides. Some argue that if animals feel pain, they deserve protections equal to humans. These thinkers, like utilitarian philosopher Peter Singer, propose that suffering is suffering, no matter the species. They challenge speciesism, the idea that belonging to Homo sapiens grants superior moral value, and advocate for a broad moral circle that includes all sentient life. Others draw subtler lines. They say intelligence, emotional depth, or self-awareness should factor into ethical consideration. Under this framework, animals like apes, dolphins, and elephants may deserve stronger rights than a fish or an insect. But here's the paradox. As science uncovers new forms of intelligence in crows, octopuses, or bees, these lines blur. Then, there are cultural and economic realities that shape this debate. What's sacred in one place might be dinner in another. And even people who love animals may still support industries that rely on their suffering, not out of cruelty, but out of habit, tradition, or necessity. So the question becomes not just, can animals feel pain like us? But what should we do about it? This is not a purely intellectual exercise. It affects policies, industries, and everyday choices, from the food on our plates to the entertainment we consume. And while the answers aren't always clear, one truth remains. Once we accept that animals feel pain, deep, real, and enduring pain, the burden shifts to us, to decide whether we will continue to ignore it or whether we will let that knowledge change how we live. Ethics, in the end, isn't just about certainty. It's about compassion guided by awareness. Failure, for humans, it's often the best teacher. But do animals learn from mistakes in the same way we do? This is where intelligence becomes visible not through success, but through adaptation. A dog learning not to jump on a hot stove twice. A crow realizing that dropping a nut on grass won't crack it, but dropping it on asphalt will. An octopus navigating a maze faster on its second try. In scientific terms, this is called error-based learning. It's not just trial and error, but memory, context, and strategy. Animals don't just stop a failed behavior. They refine it. They avoid what didn't work and experiment with what might. In one famous experiment, researchers tested monkeys with a matching-to-sample task. When they got the answer wrong, their brain scans showed frustration, but also heightened activity in learning-related regions. They weren't just failing, they were recalibrating. Even fish, long thought to be simple creatures, show signs of mistake learning. Archer fish can learn to correct their shooting aim after a miss. They adapt their trajectory. They improve. And then there are elephants. In the wild, when a young elephant tries and fails to remove bark from a tree, older members often step in to guide them, suggesting not just intelligence, but socially supported learning. The more we study this, the clearer it becomes. Many animals don't just act on instinct. They watch, they learn, they adjust. Intelligence isn't just knowing what works, it's knowing what didn't. Understanding how animals process failure might be the most human-like trait of all. Because the ability to learn from mistakes, that's what makes problem solvers, survivors, and maybe even thinkers. Imagine living in a world where you cannot speak, yet you must convey complex emotions, alert others of danger, or express affection. This is the daily reality of animals, and yet their communication systems are anything but primitive. From the intricate dances of honeybees that map flower locations, to the low-frequency rumbles of elephants that travel several kilometers through the ground, animals have evolved an astonishing variety of nonverbal languages. Take dolphins, for instance. They don't just whistle. They have individual signature whistles akin to names, allowing them to call each other out specifically. Prairie dogs, often dismissed as simple rodents, have alarm calls so detailed they can describe the size, shape, and even color of an approaching predator. Even insects like ants coordinate with astonishing precision, leaving pheromone trails that act like chemical sentences, guiding others toward food or warning of danger. And crows? They remember human faces and even pass along those memories to other crows through vocalizations and behavioral cues. More incredibly, some animals are showing signs of cross-species communication. Certain parrots learn human words and use them meaningfully, not just mimicking, but responding in context. Border collies can learn hundreds of word-object pairs and even demonstrate understanding of syntax. These are not tricks, they're cognition in action. The real breakthrough is not just in realizing that animals talk, it's understanding that they have intent and nuance in what they communicate. The complexity of animal communication challenges the long-held belief that language is solely a human trait. If animals can talk without words, the real question is, are we finally learning to listen? What separates a clever trick from genuine intelligence? One of the strongest indicators is problem solving, the ability to face a challenge and figure out a novel solution. In the wild, where survival often depends on wit as much as strength, animals have displayed mind-blowing feats of ingenuity. Meet the New Caledonian crow, already famous in the Animal Intelligence Hall of Fame. These birds don't just use tools, they make them. In controlled experiments, crows have bent wires into hooks to reach treats, solved multi-step puzzles, and even used one tool to retrieve another tool before reaching the reward. That's planning, sequencing, and adapting, a trifecta of higher cognition. Octopuses, masters of escape and mischief, have shown the ability to unscrew jars, open latches, and remember the layout of mazes. Their intelligence is so alien it defies simple comparison, but it's undeniably real. With decentralized brains and highly complex nervous systems, they challenge our very definition of a thinking animal. Elephants have been observed moving objects to use as stools to reach higher branches, using the environment in a thoughtful, planned way. Even rodents, like rats, have demonstrated insight in navigating mazes, recognizing patterns, and adapting when conditions change. In urban environments, raccoons are developing reputations as lock-picking geniuses, solving human-designed puzzles like trash bins, doors, and even complex obstacle courses. And don't overlook the cleverness of domesticated pets. Dogs often learn to open doors, and cats find ways to manipulate human behavior with precision. Problem-solving isn't just about intelligence. It's about adaptability, creativity, and foresight. These animals aren't just reacting, they're thinking. And that changes everything about how we view the cognitive line between humans and animals. Intelligence isn't always about solo problem solving. It often emerges through social interaction. And in the animal kingdom, the most complex brains are frequently found in the most social species. Consider dolphins, whose brains are among the largest relative to body size. They live in intricate pods with hierarchies, alliances, and cooperative behaviors. Some dolphins use unique signature whistles, essentially names, to identify each other. Others work in synchrony to herd fish or rescue injured members. Their interactions hint at a deep awareness of others, a foundation for what scientists call theory of mind. Elephants are another shining example. They mourn their dead, recognize themselves in mirrors, and form deep, lifelong bonds. Their matriarchal societies rely on memory, cooperation, and emotional intelligence to thrive, especially during droughts or predator threats. Even wolves and dogs, our closest four-legged companions, show impressive social smarts. Wolves use subtle body language and vocalizations to coordinate hunts, maintain order in packs, and care for pups. Domestic dogs, through evolution and human interaction, have become masters at reading our gestures, tones, and emotions, skills once thought unique to humans. Then there are primates like chimpanzees and bonobos. Their societies are full of politics, rivalries, friendships, peacemaking, and betrayals. Young chimps learn by watching elders, and disputes are often resolved with reconciliation rituals. Social intelligence requires memory, empathy, foresight, and communication. It's not about dominance, it's about connection. And as we study more animal groups, we begin to see the more social the species, the more their intelligence mirrors our own. Are these just instincts, or are they minds engaging in complex, meaningful relationships? Far beneath the ocean's surface lies a hidden world of intelligence, one where vision fades but sound becomes everything. Among the most fascinating minds in this world are cetaceans, whales, and dolphins. Let's begin with humpback whales, whose haunting songs echo across thousands of miles. These aren't random noises. Each population develops its own dialect, and over time, these songs evolve, transmitted and transformed in a process eerily similar to human culture. One pod might invent a new verse, and within months, it spreads like a viral hit through the ocean. Then there's the sperm whale, whose massive brain is the largest of any known animal. These deep divers communicate with patterns of clicks, called codas, that appear to function like complex dialects. Different clans have distinct codas, suggesting a sophisticated cultural identity. Scientists believe these patterns are passed down through generations in what may be the most ancient vocal cultures on Earth. Dolphins, meanwhile, dazzle with more than just tricks. Bottlenose dolphins can understand abstract concepts, such as same and different. In laboratory settings, they've been shown to recognize themselves in mirrors, use tools in the wild, and even comprehend syntactic structure in artificial languages. Perhaps most stunning is the fact that dolphins appear to name each other using signature whistles, unique sound signatures they develop early in life and maintain throughout. It's not just mimicry. When dolphins hear a whistle belonging to a peer, they respond appropriately, indicating true individual recognition. Despite living in an alien world of salt water, pressure, and darkness, cetaceans have evolved minds that rival primates. Their intelligence isn't human, but it's something astonishingly different. A parallel evolution of thinking, feeling, and possibly even wondering. Could it be that in the vast ocean, another civilization, ancient and acoustic, has always been speaking? We just now beg. They don't have hands. They don't have speech. And yet, corvids, the bird family that includes crows, ravens, and jays, have stunned scientists with their cognitive prowess. With brains the size of walnuts, these birds rival primates in problem solving, tool use, and even long-term planning. Let's start with a simple test. A piece of food inside a tube, unreachable without a tool. Not only do New Caledonian crows craft their own tools from sticks, but they also modify them for different purposes. One crow might sharpen a twig. Another might bend a wire into a hook. These aren't trial and error accidents. They're acts of foresight and reasoning. In one famous experiment, crows were shown to understand water displacement. Given a container of water with floating food and some pebbles nearby, they dropped the stones in, raising the water level to bring the food closer. That's basic physics, understood by a bird. And it doesn't stop at tools. Crows are excellent social strategists. They recognize human faces, remember those who threaten them, and warn others. In urban environments, they've been observed using crosswalks to crack nuts, waiting for cars to pass, and then safely retrieving the food when the light turns red. Even more surprisingly, corvids display what researchers call theory of mind, the ability to understand that others have knowledge different from their own. Scrub jays will re-hide their food if they think another bird was watching them cache it. That's not just intelligence, that's suspicion and tactical thinking. Despite their small size, corvid brains are densely packed with neurons. Their intelligence evolved along a completely different path from mammals, but the result is eerily familiar. They aren't mimicking, they're solving, predicting, and adapting. If a raven stares at you from a tree, it may not just be curious. It might be watching, calculating, wondering about you. What else is going on behind those beady black eyes? When people think of intelligent animals, pigs rarely make the list. Yet science says otherwise. These creatures, often reduced to stereotypes, are showing signs of remarkable cognitive abilities, emotional depth, and even self-awareness. Pigs can solve mazes, understand symbolic language, and operate simple video games with joysticks. In a study at Purdue University, pigs were taught to move a cursor on a screen to hit targets, and they learned quickly. They weren't just guessing, they were interpreting cause and effect. Pigs also excel in social learning. Place an inexperienced pig next to a trained one, and it will often imitate the task without direct reward. That's observational intelligence, the kind that underlies culture in primates. They possess strong memories, not just of food locations, but also individual humans and pigs. They can remember negative experiences and recognize positive ones, forming long-term bonds with caretakers. Some studies suggest that pigs can distinguish between happy and sad human voices, reacting more calmly to the former. But one of the most groundbreaking discoveries? Mirror self-recognition. While not all pigs pass the mirror test, some show signs of understanding that the reflection is themselves, a trait previously reserved for great apes, dolphins, elephants, and magpies. Emotionally, pigs are highly expressive. They show joy, grief, boredom, and frustration. In group settings, they form complex social hierarchies, resolve disputes, and even show signs of empathy. A pig observing another in distress will become distressed itself, an emotional resonance we often consider uniquely human. All this intelligence comes packed in a body we've long misunderstood. Behind the snout and the squeal is an animal capable of thinking, learning, and perhaps even feeling deeply. The more we study them, the clearer it becomes. Pigs are not just smart for a farm animal. They're smart, period. They have no backbone, 3 hearts, blue blood, and a brain that's distributed throughout their arms. Cephalopods, octopuses, squids, and cuttlefish are unlike any other intelligent creatures on Earth. And yet, despite evolving in complete isolation from mammals, They show some of the most astonishing signs of intelligence ever recorded in animals. Let's start with the octopus, often called the escape artist of the sea. These creatures can unscrew lids, navigate mazes, solve puzzles, and even open child-proof containers. They remember solutions, learn through observation, and display an uncanny ability to manipulate their environment, not for survival, but seemingly out of curiosity. In laboratories, octopuses have been seen playing with objects, bouncing balls, rearranging stones, and even squirting water at lights they dislike. Some have been caught sneaking out of their tanks at night to snack on other exhibits, then returning before morning undetected. What makes them even more extraordinary is their distributed nervous system. Each arm has a mind of its own, literally. Their arms can taste, touch, and react independently from the central brain, creating a completely alien form of intelligence, not centralized like ours, but networked. Cuttlefish, their close cousins, have shown episodic-like memory. They can recall not just what happened, but when and where a cognitive trait once believed to be uniquely human. In one study, cuttlefish remembered where food was hidden and waited patiently if they knew a better snack would appear later. Delayed gratification, a hallmark of higher cognition. Cephalopods can also camouflage instantly using their skin, not only to hide, but possibly to communicate. Their color shifting may encode emotional states, intentions, or even warnings, forming a visual language we've barely begun to decode. And all this comes from animals that live just 1 to 2 years. No upbringing, no culture to pass on, just pure raw intelligence packed in. Imagine hiding a snack for tomorrow. Simple, right? But this action requires something surprisingly complex: mental time travel. You need to visualize a future moment and make decisions now based on events that haven't happened yet. For decades, scientists believed this ability was uniquely human. But mounting evidence challenges that belief, showing that animals may not just live in the moment, but mentally project themselves forward in time. Let's start with western scrub jays. These clever birds cache food in multiple locations. But what's truly astonishing is that they seem to plan not just what they'll eat, but when and where they'll need it. They remember what type of food they stored, where they hid it, and even how long ago it was cached, adjusting their behavior accordingly. They also rehide food if they think another bird saw them. That's not just memory, it's strategic foresight. In one experiment, jays were given different types of food, depending on the cage they were in. Later, they were allowed to store food freely. Remarkably, they stored the food they wouldn't be given tomorrow, a clear sign of anticipatory behavior. Other animals show similar abilities. Chimpanzees and bonobos have been seen gathering tools for use hours later, even carrying them long distances to reach a goal. This isn't instinct. It's delayed intention, a key marker of cognitive sophistication. Even rats, yes, rats, have demonstrated signs of future planning. In maze experiments, rats have been trained to press certain levers that will deliver food later, not immediately, indicating some understanding of deferred outcomes. Then there's the case of orangutans using large leaves or branches to build shelters before rain hits, suggesting weather prediction based on past experience. These findings suggest that animals may possess a primitive form of episodic foresight. While it may not match our complex human planning, It's a far cry from the idea that animals are trapped. Imagine hiding a snack for tomorrow. Simple, right? But this action requires something surprisingly complex: mental time travel. You need to visualize a future moment and make decisions now based on events that haven't happened yet. For decades, scientists believed this ability was uniquely human. But mounting evidence challenges that belief, showing that animals may not just live in the moment, but mentally project themselves forward in time. Let's start with western scrub jays. These clever birds cache food in multiple locations. But what's truly astonishing is that they seem to plan not just what they'll eat, but when and where they'll need it. They remember what type of food they stored, where they hid it, and even how long ago it was cached, adjusting their behavior accordingly. They also rehide food if they think another bird saw them. That's not just memory, it's strategic foresight. In one experiment, jays were given different types of food, depending on the cage they were in. Later, they were allowed to store food freely. Remarkably, they stored the food they wouldn't be given tomorrow, a clear sign of anticipatory behavior. Other animals show similar abilities. Chimpanzees and bonobos have been seen gathering tools for use hours later, even carrying them long distances to reach a goal. This isn't instinct. It's delayed intention, a key marker of cognitive sophistication. Even rats, yes, rats, have demonstrated signs of future planning. In maze experiments, rats have been trained to press certain levers that will deliver food later, not immediately, indicating some understanding of deferred outcomes. Then there's the case of orangutans using large leaves or branches to build shelters before rain hits, suggesting weather prediction based on past experience. These findings suggest that animals may possess a primitive form of episodic foresight. While it may not match our complex human planning, it's a far cry from the idea that animals are trapped. We've traveled across continents and minds, into the oceans, forests, skies, and labs, to uncover a truth that's both humbling and profound. Intelligence isn't one thing. It's many, and we're not the only ones who have it. Crows craft tools. Elephants grieve. Dolphins invent games. Octopuses solve problems. Rats show empathy. Bees calculate efficiency. Every animal you saw today was thinking. So the next time someone says it's just a dog or animals can't really think, you'll know better. And maybe you'll help others rethink the question entirely. Because this isn't just about science. It's about respect. It's about coexistence. It's about recognizing that we share this world with minds radically different, but no less worthy than ours. If this episode made you pause, made you wonder, then don't let it end here. Back-end index pointing right, like this video, to support documentaries that challenge the way we think. Speech balloon comment below, what animal intelligence moment blew your mind? Bell subscribe for more truth-driven explorations into the animal world. Television and watch our other episodes, because the journey into the minds of animals is only just beginning. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay kind, and never underestimate the power of a brain that doesn't look like yours.